anybody still awake? One. Good. Then let's get started. So my name is Artur Signell. I'm the head of research and development at Vaadin, and tonight I'll talk a bit about what we have been doing lately at Vaadin, what we're doing right now, and also what we are going to do in the very near future. So without much further introduction, I'll just jump right in and start by talking a bit what we were doing last year. So at the end of 2009, we had add-on support added to Vaadin, which really made the theme for 2010, which then became all about add-ons for Vaadin. And when I talk about add-ons, well, the packaging technology we made, that was for widget add-ons, but there are also a lot of other kind of add-ons that people have made for Vaadin. But before getting into that, let me just show a picture of the directory, which is the place we launched last year, really where all the add-ons are gathered, really the place to go if you want to find some extension to Vaadin. So we now have a lot of add-ons in the directory created partly by the Vaadin team, partly by the Vaadin team members on their free time or the Community Friday time, and also a lot of add-ons created by completely people that have no relation to Vaadin Ltd whatsoever. So what I think makes the directory really nice is also that it has every component, everybody has kind of put some effort into these components and really written an overview, made demos, released source code, written code examples, added screenshots, basically everything you need to get started using these add-ons. What we have been doing apart from the directory regarding the add-ons also is put a lot of effort into using the add-ons and producing the add-ons simple. So for instance, our Eclipse integration that had added support for add-ons last year, so now all you have to do is to get the add-ons into use in your Eclipse is you download the add-ons from the directory, drop them into your Eclipse project, and automatically the plugin will just ask a confirmation for you that you really want to start using the add-on. So what's needed now that this is a widget add-on is that we recompile the widget set, and then we're ready to go with the add-ons. Now everybody is not obviously using Eclipse, so we made a lot of other integration as well. We have the integration for, okay, let's skip the remote. So we have now the support for Maven in the directory. If you want to use an add-on in your Maven project, all you have to do is copy the dependency information from the directory, add it to your Maven project, and once again you recompile the widget set and you're ready to go. Also, we have made an integration for those who are using Liferay, so you can do basically the same thing in Liferay. You drop the add-on jars into your Liferay installation, go to the control panel to our Vaadin Liferay control panel portlet, and just click to recompile the widget set. So this was this is kind of the work that we put into making add-ons easy to use. The widget set compilation, unfortunately, we cannot get rid of until the Google Web Toolkit adds support for this to compile widgets separately. Also, the tools have support for producing these add-ons, so you can just create your widget in, for instance, Eclipse, export it, add it to the directory, and share it with the world, or sell it if you so like. So currently in the directory there are 158 add-ons for Vaadin, and these add-ons are created by, as I said, different people from here and there. There are add-ons in a lot of different categories. We have these toolkit productivity tools, Art Foundation, providing really large help to create applications, using Vaadin, trying to make it more efficient and easier. We even have tools like Chrometric that you can test your Vaadin application, how the colorblind people see your Vaadin application. We have a lot of widgets like Google Web Toolkit Graphics wrapper or a Google Web Toolkit Graphics widget, visualization for Vaadin, and so on. There are a lot of data sources, lazy query container, Hibernate container. There are add-ons for providing server push, automatic updates of the UI using polling, and so on and so on. Now, the add-ons we have added to the directory, some of them commercial, dual licensed, others free for everybody, but I think Jonas already mentioned these add-ons, so let's just skip through them quickly. The test bench for testing, timeline for creating graphs, TouchKit creating mobile applications, Vaadin calendar for creating the JFocus calendar, the JPA container for connecting to JPA, using JPA to a database. Then what Jonas didn't have in his list are the recently introduced Vaadin SQL container, SQL container, which you can use to connect to your database, connect your database to your Vaadin application if you're not using JPA. So it has two modes. It can use directly on SQL table, allow you to, for instance, show it in a table or edit in a form without much hassle at all. It also has the more advanced freeform query support, where you get a little help or a lot of help, but you still have to produce some SQL statements yourself, so you can join multiple tables and update tables in various places. We have another free add-on, the tree table, that is an extension of the table. Somebody suggested I should show our GVT table code, but I'm really not going to show that right now. It's really not nice, but this tree table is pretty nice. So it extends the table, providing a hierarchical view of data, so you can show, for instance, your file system or whatever other hierarchical data you have. Now, last year was not all about add-ons, so let me just say a few words about the other things we made last year. So we had a lot of maintenance releases with bug fixes for Vaadin, and we also had, well, if we count Vaadin 6.5, we had 3 minor releases. 6.5 actually was released this January, a couple of weeks ago, with a 6.5.1 release just last Friday. So what's new in these versions? Well, a lot of things were new in these versions. I'll just quickly jump through some features. We have drag and drop added to the Vaadin framework, so it's really a cross-browser drag and drop. You can use in any application. It also includes now drag and drop uploading of files, provided you have a browser that supports these kind of features, so HTML5 in practice. We added keyboard navigation to a lot of components. This was seriously lacking feature previously. So now you can navigate using the keyboard. You can select, you can do pretty much everything. Then we added lazy loading of widgets. This was mentioned earlier with the name Run Async in the Google Web Toolkit. Now this is included in Vaadin in such a way that you don't have to worry about Run Async, but instead you can just select what widgets you want to include by default, and then what widgets you would like to load lazily when they are used. Now in the latest version we also had some logging improvements, so you can better control the logging output on the server side. We have moved to the newest Google Web Toolkit. Now apparently there is a newer version, so we have to release a new Vaadin version, but still a few days ago we were on the newest Google Web Toolkit and can use everything that brings. In the Vaadin releases there have also been a lot of minor component enhancements. I will not go into these right now because there are very many, might seem small, some might seem big, but still very improvements. We also now in the latest version have added Chrome frame support, which means, well, it doesn't mean that you have to have Chrome frame if you have IE. This would be good, of course, because then we could get rid of IE. But what it means is that if you have IE and have installed Chrome frame, it will automatically use it. So this is a good way to speed up your old IE browser. We also have focused quite a lot on quality improvements and testing. There was a question earlier about how Grid is tested, how we are doing the testing, or quite a lot of testing is using Vaadin Test Bench and the screenshot features of Vaadin Test Bench. So basically we have a lot of test cases that are run in all of our supported browsers, simulating actually what the user would do and then taking screenshots and comparing them to references. So for instance, and this is now from one of our, I think it's the Luno team demo that is being tested automatically using a test script. And this is now the output of a failed test where we can see some magenta squares or rectangles here where there are some changes. And if we can jump back and forward and see that an image that should be centered here is really not centered anymore, it's aligned left. So this is some result of a change that really shouldn't affect the table in any way. Now that was very briefly what we have been doing during the last year. So let me now move on to what we are doing right now. And what we really are focusing on right now is the productivity. So that means we want to improve Vaadin in such a way that it's faster and easier and simpler to do things. And the current projects that we have for improving the productivity includes the visual editor, which is really a visual editor for doing layouts for Vaadin applications. So instead of writing all your code, writing the Java code to create the layouts, you can create the layout in, well, somebody would say a Visual Basic style, but using drag and drop, dragging the components, adding them to the suitable places, configuring them, using setting properties for them, and so on. So this way you can create the layouts and immediately see the results instead of just redeploying and checking and seeing that something went wrong and you were missing a set size full or something like that. Now the other thing we have been working on, which also was mentioned here earlier in the Google Web Toolkit talk, is Spring Row. So just a quick question, who knows what Row is? After hearing that talk, a few. So Row is really about getting getting started and creating applications, developing them quickly, and skipping all the unnecessary things and just doing the necessary things. So what I'll be doing now, I think, is skipping this presentation and instead showing you an example of what the Spring Row plugin can do that we have been developing. So if I just get this Spring Row like this, I will demonstrate this using the Spring Source toolsuite, which is basically an Eclipse version where we have integrated row support, and then I have also installed our Spring Row Vaadin plugin and our normal Eclipse plugin for Vaadin. I thought I'd be creating basically a conference manager now in a few minutes from scratch. So basically an application where you can keep track of, well, the presentations during JFocus, for instance. So let me just start by creating a new row project. We call it conference. Create a base package for this. Just go with the defaults otherwise, and wait for row to create a project for us. So this will now set up a really basic project. It's Maven based that everybody loves. So let's see now. Now that we got a new project, we have the row shell here. I don't know if you can see anything about this, or is it too small? So basically row is based on the row shell, where I can type some commands and then something happens to my project, hopefully what I want. So I can start by using the persistence setup. I will create a persistence layer for my application. We use Hibernate, a hypersonic database. Run this command, wait a few seconds, and then I should have my persistence layer set up. There, now we're done. What I now do is create a data model for our simple application. So I'll use this entity command and create 3 entities for the application. I will put them now in this entity package. And let's start by creating an instance, an entity called room, which we will use to represent the room in which a presentation is being held. So then using the field command, I can add fields to this room entity. So let's add a name entity, a name field to this entity, required it not to be null. And well, this will do for our room entity. Now we'll move over to another entity. We'll make a speaker entity. If I can spell it correctly, there. So we'll have a speaker. We'll add also same kind of name field to the speaker, and just to get another type of field than a string, we'll add a number field as well. We'll add the speaker age. This will be an integer, and we'll make some restrictions that the speaker should be between, say, 15 and 100 years. That should do, I think, for JFocus. Now we have a room and a speaker. So let's create the final entity, which is a presentation. This presentation now will tie the speaker and the room together and give a timestamp for the presentation, so we know then who is talking, where is he talking, and when is he talking. So in the same way, let me now just add, oh sorry, not at all in the same way. Let's remove that. We want to add a reference field to our presentation entity. We should name it speaker, or we will name it speaker, and it should refer to one of our speaker entities. Still not spelled correctly. Also, it is mandatory, so let's add the not null here. Now, similarly, we can add a reference to our room. A little title there. And this, of course, then will be of type room, also required. And finally, let's add a date field, type Java util date. Let's call it date time. Now, this is only what I've been doing now is basic row stuff. What row has been doing while I have been typing these commands is creating classes, entity classes containing these fields that I've added. So I have now these three entity classes, presentation, links to the both other classes, adds the date time, basic row stuff. But now the interesting part comes when we start using the Vaadin commands provided by the Vaadin plugin. So running the Vaadin setup command will create a basic Vaadin application that we can use to edit these entities. So what we really are creating is a CRUD application where we can add, remove, update, delete these entities. So let's just run this Vaadin setup command. This will now generate an application that we call Conference Manager. And after a while, it will add some classes to the project. Vaadin application here, Vaadin window, and some helper classes. This actually has not generated any views where we can edit the entities yet, so we can generate them using the generate all command. So let's put them in a view package now, and additionally specify that they should be visually composable. What this really means is that we get such classes that we can open and edit them using the Vaadin Visual Editor. So, okay, now after these few commands, we are done. Let's take the application, run it on a server, and see what happens. It should only take a few seconds. If it were OSGI, it would be done already. There, now let me just move this to a real browser window so we can see it a little better. Now this is what we have generated using these commands. So here we have our conference manager, a nice UI, a menu here on the left where we have the entities that we created. So now we can open the entity view. We have a table with existing entities. We have a possibility to add a new entity. So we can add a room, called the alpha room. Here we can add another room, the beta room, and we'll see them appear in the table up here. Now, these are persisted then automatically to the database, and so they will survive, or they are persisted. Now this will only ask me if I want to save the changes, as I didn't push cancel here. But let's move over and add a speaker here. I will add myself. There. Okay, we can add another speaker here, Jonas Lehtinen, for instance. Okay, he's pretty old. Now we see that the restrictions we put in here are automatically checked by the UI also, so it uses the same annotations as the JPA uses to verify that we enter valid data. So if we instead enter his real age here, then it will be saved and everything's okay. So now we can go to the presentation view. We will be presented with the speakers we just added, the room we just added. We can select the date and time for the presentation. In 1 week, I will talk in room alpha, and we can create the presentation. Now this is really nice. We created a CRUD in just a few minutes. It's completely usable. We can manage JFocus probably using this. Except maybe a few minor issues, like there's no room here for entering a topic or a description of the talk. The date and time has a resolution of milliseconds, which is pretty specific. I don't think I'll manage to match this to 178 milliseconds when I should start. So let me just go back to this STS and my project, and let me stop the server before I do anything else. Now, if you want to do some changes here, we can just take the presentation entity. I'll add a few fields here, a string field for the topic. I'll add a string field for the description. Type it correctly once again. And this is, okay, this is what we need to do to update the data model. I still need to make a minor change to the persistence configuration, or it will destroy all the data we had when we restart. So now it will only update the tables with the new data. Now, as we generated the views as visually composable, we can open them using the Vaadin editor and go into the Vaadin design mode. So what this does now is show us the view in a visual editable fashion, so we can just click on the components here, see what we have, move them around, and so on. What I really want to do now is, first of all, I want to rearrange the components here where, well, in another way than vertically. Now they're in a vertical layout, so they are restricted by it. It cannot be moved freely. So let me just change this vertical layout to an absolute layout, which will collapse the components. I'll specify a height for the absolute layout so it will work a bit better. Now, what I now can do is drag the components here. Here we have a layout containing these buttons. I'll just drag it down here and drag the fields out of the vertical layout and then arrange them the way I want. So I'll start by putting the speaker field up here, for instance. I'll put this room field here so it's aligned with the speaker field, and then add the date time here to the right, also nicely aligned. Now I added to the presentation entity a couple of fields, the topic and the description, so I want to add some fields for those as well here. I'll just grab a text field here. I'll use this for the topic. Okay, goes there. I'll set a caption for this text field. It's the topic field, so we'll see what it's doing. And then I'll set the name of the topic field to topic field, which will tell the row plugin that this should actually be mapped to the topic field in the entity. So I don't need to do any special mapping to get the contents of this field saved in the database. The same way I can add then a rich text area. I will name it description field and it will be mapped directly to the description. Add a caption so the user knows what it's about. And then I'll just save this form. Now additionally, I could of course change the resolution of the date field so I don't have to start. That's exactly. So let's change it to a minute and save this again. Now let's restart the server and see if we have a new presentation view. Now this takes again only a few seconds. Now we can go over to Safari, back to Safari, refresh the browser, and here we have the new edit view where we can add the topic of the talk, Vaadin Roadmap 2011. And Vaadin Roadmap 2011 is presented. And of course, as this is a rich text editor, we can make all kinds of nice formatting of the text. And then we just say this, and it persisted automatically in the database again. So the mapping is completely automatic by just naming the field correctly. Now the Java code here, it only generates Java code, as we don't need anything else typically when using Vaadin. So we can now go ahead and, if we don't want to use the visual editor, we just edit the Java code directly. If the visual editor creates really quite readable code, it doesn't obfuscate it in any way, so we can just go in here and make some changes if we like. And also the other Java files here are just standard Vaadin Java files, so we can edit them any way we like. Now this was a short demonstration of the Spring Row plugin, the visual editor that we've been working on recently. So let me just go back to the presentation. If I can get this mirroring off. And then everything's on the wrong screen, of course. So let's go back to this and have a look at what we're doing next with Vaadin and our add-ons. So other things we're currently doing, except the visual editor, the Spring Row integration, is working on touch support for Vaadin. So again, a couple of days ago, we were using a milestone release of Google Web Toolkit for this. Now we're apparently using the stable 2.2 branch. And the goal is there, of course, to add proper touch support to all our components and make it possible just to make applications that work well on touch devices, iPad, iPhones, other touch devices. Now another thing we have been working on is embedding of Vaadin applications. What this really means is that you can create, say, small Vaadin applications that you host on your server somewhere, and you can allow people to embed this application into their web pages. So much like something like Google Maps or similar applications. So you can offer it as a service if you like, or just offer the ability to embed what you have done. Now another thing we're working on for the next minor Vaadin release is customizable container filtering, especially for our in-memory containers. There has been some complaints that it's really not easy to customize or implement your own filtering, so this is something we're going to address in the next minor release as well. Now, in addition to this, we are working on improving our add-ons. The Vaadin Touch Kit is scheduled for an update, mainly with bug fixes and some minor improvements. The JPA container also will get an update with mostly bug fixes. Vaadin Test Bench will have more browser support. It will support, for instance, Firefox 4. It will work better on non-Windows operating systems and have some other minor features and bug fixes included. Schedule for these is a bit open as of now, but it's something we'll get done at least during, I hope during Q1, but at least during Q2. we should get this out. Now the next major version of Vaadin is something we have talked about for quite some time now. There have been plans, there has been some initial development, but what we'll really be doing now is getting started with this for real. So we don't only talk about it, but actually do something about it. So what we plan to do for Vaadin 7, actually before I go to that, I should have this nice Oracle disclaimer to show you that everything I say is a lie and nothing can be trusted, and I promise absolutely nothing. But as I don't have any such disclaimer, I'll just go ahead and show you the plans. So what we're planning for Vaadin 7, first of all, is a refactoring of the window interface, and well, basically the way the relation between the application and the window in Vaadin. So the goal is to make it really easy or automatic that all the Vaadin applications that you develop have multi-tab support. They support bookmarking and things like this. These are all things that are possible at the moment, but it really requires some boilerplate code, and there are some issues also when you implement them. Typically not noticed, but at least theoretical issues. We're planning for a built-in server push. There are server push solutions in the directory, a couple of them already, but this is really something that we want to have in the core, so you can make changes on the server side and just push them out to all clients without any hassle. Really useful for applications where you have a lot of interaction between users. Typically a chat comes to mind, but useful in many other applications as well. Also, we'll have a look at the layout and rendering performance of Vaadin. This is something that's also discussed every now and then, especially when you nest a lot of layouts. You can have some issues with this, but we'll have a look at it and see what we can do to improve the situation. Also, the forms in Vaadin will be a bit redesigned. We should make it easier to make complex forms. So really you have, right now it's easy to make simple forms, you get them automatically. When you go complex, it gets a little more complex to create them as well. So we want to make this easier so you can focus on what you really want to do and not how to do it. Slightly related to this is better support for validation, conversion, parsing of data, especially in forms, tables, and the like. When you get the data from the database, you want to display it in a slightly different way. You want to automatically validate it based on some annotations, like in the role plugin, or based on the type of the data, or anything like that. So this is something we also are planning to address in Vaadin 7. Also, Jonas mentioned internationalization support, which was in Millstone version 1, maybe. Hasn't really been there since, at least not in that way. So this is something we also have planned to have a look how we can improve this, not by locking the user in any way to use certain implementation or methods to do internationalization, but just provide better support for this. Now they were not taught here. I think I had a private talk with someone about the client-side API of Vaadin components. So currently, the client-side components are pretty much made only to be used in Vaadin applications, and it's not possible to use them in other applications. It's quite hard to extend them in any sensible way, and this is really something that we need to look into to improve the client-side API, make it possible to build custom client-side or GUI components by composing existing components. Another large thing in the plan is improving theming support. This is pretty much something we don't have plans yet for how we're going to do it, but it's an issue that we need to address. And finally, the plan that we're absolutely sure about is that we'll drop IE6 support from Vaadin 7. The reason for this is pretty simple. We want to focus our efforts on actually developing new things and making things work in the modern browsers, and not put half of our time to make hacks for IE6 to make it work. Now the first developer preview version for Vaadin 7 is planned for June. This is absolutely no promise, but it's planned for June. We aim to include at least the windowing API renewals in this version, so you get to try them out and see how they work for you. Now, before Jonas gets too nervous, I'll just end the presentation. If you have any questions, comments, please ask me now or later. No questions? Okay, thank you.